All right, everyone, welcome. Happy Thursday. Yeah, I was getting mine just talking about. I found out yesterday that my job is going to be phased out starting January 1st. And I've been here for the county for 17 years, and also I haven't talked about this before, but we are declaring bankruptcy. We have been for like the last year. And this is obviously going to change things a little bit. Originally, we're going to do Chapter 13 so we can save our one rental property. But if I lose my job, we'll probably have to do a Chapter 7. And then that house will get sold. And all the equity, all that stuff is just going to be gone. Yeah, so all that is going on, and so we'll see what happens in the next few months. I may not be able to stream as I'm dealing with all this, at least by January 1st. Maybe after January 1st, I might not be able to. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm I'm trying to apply to places because like last time when my hours got cut in half, I spent a year and a half looking for work and I couldn't find anything. This time around, I'm trying to apply to places that I might actually want to work. Like yesterday. I applied to Gravity Payments, the guy who's behind the $70,000 minimum wage. I put in one resume for a QA position, which I don't have any experience in that, but I have a broad scope of background, computer programming, web stuff, networking, and so on. I'm not really expecting to get that. But I also put in a second resume, specifically talking about my politics. And, Dan Price, if you don't follow Dan Price on Twitter, follow him. It's Dan at Seattle. He's amazing. And so I just said, hey, these are sorts of things that I'm doing. My resume was basically my, when I started my political stuff. My blog came first, streaming, my running for office, and my policy site. And I said, hey, I love, Dan Price and his politics, and it's not that my Twitter account is just, a retweeting of his stuff, but maybe, there can be a position. Maybe he would appreciate someone to help him, to work with him, to talk about the politics and write articles and that sort of a thing. So I'm trying to. I like to think it is, but for most people, it's a bit. Most people aren't ready to hear it, and Dan Price is saying a lot of stuff, a lot of amazing things. So I'm hoping, and also at the bottom, the PS says, if you see Mr. Price, please tell him thanks for all the amazing tweets. So hopefully, if something was to come out of that, that would be ideal. Perhaps starting a live stream with him, talking about the politics, do blog writing, just getting paid to write and research and do the stuff that I really want to do would be mind bending. So I did that. Just nothing's gonna happen with it, but you never know. So I just throw it out there. I'm desperate. That's the sort of thing I want to do. So let's see what happens. And then today, I put in one for the Sunrise Movement, actually. Because they're, I was very heavy into environmental stuff, and I am too. So, they had a few spots that talk about, like, why do you want to work for them? Believe me, dude, if I could, my ass would be gone. If I could afford it and we didn't have all this debt and everything, and we could afford to move, my ass would be in one of those Nordic countries just like that. I spent over a decade ago, I was looking at how do we, how can we, move there, immigrate. And I think at that time they actually had, one of the countries had a political asylum for Americans. For some reason, I can't remember what it was for, but it was available. But, especially with, process of declaring bankruptcy and that's declaring bankruptcy because my vending machine business failed at the very start of the pandemic. So that just tore everything down. Our economics were just fine. I mean, we were getting along fine except for the business failing and having all the stuff dealing with that. But now with my job going away, it's definitely a whole different animal. So yeah, if after all this is over and we get through the bankruptcy, we get a job or something, maybe we can look at actually moving to one of the Nordic states, because I think that would be better for everyone, the whole family. I mean, we have to turn over our yoga studio to someone, and we have an amazing person to do that too. So we're very fortunate for that. But I don't know, if anyone who's watching wants to sponsor me and my family moving, you drop a few $100,000 on us, and then we'll get right on that. I'll have no problem doing that. So yeah, that's the horrors that's happening here with my life personally. And I looked at the DSA; they don't have jobs open, because I wouldn't mind working with them, and also the Justice Democrats, they don't have job openings either. So I'm trying to look along that vein, so I might actually, do work that I would care about, and that that I would find useful, not just doing some mindless, brainless job. Not that my work is brainless, just lacking meaning. Just a job that's doing it because it needs to be done, but public transport companies. Yeah, I could look into some electric car companies. Actually, don't disown me, but I looked at Tesla. I didn't look too deeply, but I don't think they have anything that's kind of in my vein. All of their stuff is engineering, but that's an idea. So electric transport is a good thing. I'm desperate. So yeah, sustainable energy would be another one. And it's also about, finding a company that's big enough that can pay me, because I was making $32 an hour, something like that, $33 an hour for the past, however many years, and making sure I can find a job that's close to that, so that I'm not, God, I mean, $15, $16 an hour for most people, that would be great. That would be, God, oh my God, I could work full time at 15, 16 and be making the same amount of money I'm making now, basically. And you got to do what I got to do and all that. But if I can reach for something larger, that would be better. I'm also looking for writing jobs too, because that would also be something I would be interested in. But whenever I've looked for writing jobs, you really have to have a journalism degree and lots of experience. I know my writing isn't all that clean and all that stuff, so I'm not really expecting that. But that would also be ideal. But I'm not, 4 or 5 years ago I was looking and I couldn't find anything for that either. The problem with that is I don't have the knowledge to do it, honestly, because like when I was looking for jobs, 4 or 5 years ago when my hours got cut in half, my skill set is right in the middle. I haven't done research or any work on fluid design. Done a little bit on that, or for Drupal, they want Drupal developers, being able to create modules and stuff like that, and I don't have that skill set. My skill set is older HTML, CSS, and contemporary Drupal administration, and so that general web development jobs are full stack, Node.js, which I haven't worked with, Amazon Web Services, and all that stuff that you're studying that I haven't had access to. So it's very difficult for me to get in on that, but that I am applying for those website administration sort of stuff. I can definitely do some things. But yeah, I'm looking at that a little bit. Self-teaching, right? Yeah, well, you're studying it yourself, right? Yeah, it's that sort of stuff that God, if I really wanted to keep up with it, the full stack development is what I would have been looking at a decade ago. But yeah, my job, as I talk about, I have no appreciation for usability and accessibility. And honestly, if that wasn't just beaten out of me by my work, I would have gone to get my master's degree in that and, you know, specialized in that. But my drive at work kind of slowly died after that. We don't do AWS, even though Amazon, the company, is in our town. Oh, and sponsor. Oh, wow, that's kind of ridiculous. That's super ridiculous. Maybe they didn't pay enough to get. They didn't invest enough to get to be able to get that class. They didn't unlock that stretch goal. Yeah, that is pretty strange. Pretty strange. You'd think that with that much invested, you'd want them to work with AWS. That is such a huge amount of what they make. I mean, isn't AWS like at least half of what they make, or some crazy number like that? No, Amazon itself is pretty giant. I don't know. Yeah, it's a huge chunk. Yeah. Yeah, that is strange. That is very, very strange. So, yeah, looking for work. I'm gonna try and find something that's inspiring that I want to do, that I want to go to work and to be a part of. It's gonna be difficult to do because my skill set isn't modern enough, unfortunately. I'd like to just, you know, get into the writing aspect. Ideally, working with, you know, Gravity Payments with Dan Price, you know, running a live stream with him, talking politics, having guests on, and, you know, writing stuff. God, just all the data that he throws out there is just, it's just bewildering. How much how much he's in tune with the horrors going on. 47%. Wow, that's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Like one of his, Dan posted this stream of posts just giving links to evidence of systemic and structural racism, you know, in this country and in the world in general. And the list was huge. I took all those links and I dropped them into one of my posts on racism. And I even mentioned that in my resume that was targeted towards that for Gravity Payments. So yeah, that would be ideal, working for Gravity Payments in a sort of a political arm or dealing with that stuff. If the dream to work at Dan would be, yeah, oh my God, it would be so amazing. It'd be so mind-blowingly amazing, just, you know, to have a man who's that in tune with the politics and, you know, sorts of things that we need to do, and him just not talking about it, but also doing it. You know, his income is $70,000. Everyone in his company is $70,000, and he bought, you know, he's working with bought a few more companies, and he's doing that there as well. And it's, you know, it's one thing, like, you know, me to talk about it, and it's a whole nother thing for someone to have the balls to go ahead and do it. The balls and the resources to be able to give it a try, and then still be talking about it and saying, hey, you stupid fucker, see, it works, it's amazing, stop being stupid. So yeah, that would be kind of a dream job right there. But I'm not gonna hold my breath. So I put it in yesterday. I put in Sunrise Movement today, and I got to figure out what other companies I could possibly go to that might be inspiring to work for and make a difference while we're all watching the death spiral that we are in. Everything on fire, climate refugees, droughts. Amazon, well, I could, but, you know, even looking at, you know, Tesla, which I like a lot of what they do, I saw in some of the job listings I've seen, Facebook was on there and Amazon was on there. I mean, I don't think I want to soil myself that much by working for Amazon or Facebook for Tesla. I'm desperate, man. I'm desperate. I know it's yeah, I know. I know. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal. I just don't want to be homeless. Yeah, but I just looked at it a little bit before we got on stream. There really isn't anything there for me as far as I can tell. They're pretty much, all engineering. Fuck the system, exactly. And that's exactly what I've been kind of sitting here for with over a decade. Just, not being able to do what I want to do. And I know. Thank you. Just like having an antagonistic work environment and not being able to, not being supported and not, going into accessibility and usability is something that I was impassioned about, not having that support, which really is really demotivating. And just, and also getting into politics, wanting to do that, just not having the opportunity to do the things I want to do. It's difficult. Yeah, it's capitalism. It doesn't care about you, just as long as you're doing your part to make the system grind forward and making money for those billionaires. Yeah. So, uplifting stuff. So, I don't know. I'll hopefully find some other organizations that might be good for me to, inspiring for me to work with, and then we'll see what happens. Okay. So, we have lots of uplifting stuff to talk about, like we normally do. Let's see here. We've got, I know, right? It's uplifting is all we do. Okay, so tell you what, I'll give you the rich cheating the system. I know it's mind-boggling. This one, actually, most of the posts I have are really long. I'll give you the option what you want me to go over. We've got this one here. Then we've got two here in climate change. Can you see that? You can't see that. Here. As the climate bakes, Turkey faces the future without water. Apocalypse will not be slow. Good uplifting stuff. And then, of course, I found this one, the inside story of how Berlin took on corporate landlords and won. We could move this one up here. Move that first and then go into the ProPublica one. ProPublica one it's super long, just like the other ones that we've read from them. It's mega long. All right, we'll do that. We'll do the Berlin one since you're here, and this will be interesting. And then we can go into ProPublica, and then we can go into climate doomerism after that, because there's plenty of that to go around. Fuck capitalism. Okay. All right, so here we go. I'm really curious about this too, because like I say, my housing. Hello? There we go. All right, here we go. The inside story of how Berlin took on corporate landlords and won. Now, on Tuesday, we read an article that was before the actual vote or election or whatever. This one is from 3 days ago. So this one should hopefully cover after the election and whatever happened from it. The city of renters has spoken decisively in a referendum that could have a huge impact, not just in Germany's capital, but across Europe. We can only hope. But of course, it'll never hit here, right? Because, yeah. When Kilian Weisner moved to Berlin in July 2020, he immediately fell in love with his local area. Oh my God. Gesundbrunnen, located in the north of the city, had a strong community feel, and not to mention local bars on every street. It feels very unique, Weiser, 32, said. There was one more thing that Weiser loved about his home. He had moved in while the, oh my God, more German words, Mietendeckel, Berlin city-wide rent cap was in effect, meaning he was paying just 420 euros, about 360 pounds, which is probably $500 or $600 US a month for his apartment. which he shared with a friend. Oh, okay, that's cool. But in April, the cap was overturned following a court ruling, because fuck the courts, on the basis it conflicted with German constitutional law, causing Weisner's rent to jump by about $280. 280 euro. But for Weiser, that was just the beginning of his struggle. So it increased by 30%. Weiser, like many Berlin residents, lives in an apartment block owned by a corporate landlord, Heimstaden, which owns around another 6,000 flats in the city. Disputing his rent, Weiser argued that due to another housing law that caps certain rents depending on the area, 720 was way too high. Heimstaden disagreed, but did offer a slightly lower rent. Weiser rejected the offer, demanding that the rent return to 420, which he believed was illegal. But without the means to take the landlord to court, Weiser continues to pay the high increased rent along with hundreds of thousands of other people in Berlin. Is Vice UK based? They could be. Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at too. They don't put US dollars, so kind of fuck them, right? Not putting everything in US dollars. What the hell? Who the hell do they think they are? And that's like part of my policy is that lawyers all need to be public servants. That way, because right now, with the way it is currently, lawyers are they're a private business that justice is only for the rich. Only rich people can afford to pay for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in legal fees to destroy someone's life. We saw this with Monsanto, right? All throughout the United States, destroying small family farms and taking them over and so on and so forth. Until our lawyers are public servants, every single fucking one of them, there can't really be any justice in our legal system, at least from that perspective. So in this case, had all the lawyers been public servants, this might not be a problem. But this weekend, residents in Berlin felt enough was enough. Months after the rent cap was overturned, locals voted in favor of local authorities taking control of flats from mega landlords in a city that has seen rents rise by a third since 2015. Oh, okay. So this has been rising. See, Berlin campaigners set to win a radical housing referendum to take flats off mega landlords who own more than 300 properties in the city. Later to that, if the punishment for breaking the law is a fine. Yes, exactly right. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. If the punishment for breaking law is a fine, then it's only for the poor because the rich just do whatever. And that's another argument for what's also in my policy is that fines should be based on income or wealth. That way, it's not just for the poor. Like one of the Nordic countries has that, like, for, I don't know if it's for everything, but for some things, like a speeding ticket for a rich guy was like $26,000. So Switzerland? Okay. Yeah. So that makes it not so bad. That way it's, people who are poor don't pay anything and rich people start raking out lots of money for being a bunch of asshats. That's also in my policies too. All right, the final results saw 56.4%, 1,034,709 people vote in favor of socializing property. That's a decent amount. I was hoping for something a little over 60, something a bit more resolute in doing this. But that's still over 56% it's definitely a good chunk. Although the referendum is non-binding, campaigners say they have a mandate now of 240,000 mandate to now put 240,000 flats back into public ownership in a decision that could have huge ramifications for housing and rent controls in other European cities. But a huge chunk who would have voted yes. Oh, yeah, that's right. You talked about that. There's a lot of people who are immigrants or business or whatever. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we talked about that. Then another part of my policies is to give immigrants the right to vote in local stuff because it does affect them. And that would have probably swung that probably would have swung that huge. Good point. Good point. All right. So it says non-binding. Now they have a mandate to put 240,000 backs into public ownership. Okay, so where does the mandate come from? 1.3 million that cannot vote. Oh, wow. That's... So the population is like about 2 million, and then there's another million that can't vote. Yeah, that's a third. Yeah, that would have radically changed things. Radically changed things. Around 1/3. Okay. Good to know. Yeah, it probably would have been over 60 then, 65% at the very least. With that much extra available to vote. On an overcast September day in South Berlin, that would be almost another billion. Yeah, okay, cool. In South Berlin, residents of the Hufeisensiedlung, meaning Horseshoe Estate, sat outside the listed building's cafe, sipping coffee and chatting. The collection of flats, painted blue and white, wrap around a central lawn and lake with an opening at one end, giving the modernist estate its recognizable shape. The area is quiet for Berlin. All the hip and exciting is not happening here, one resident said, and the leaves on the trees are turning burnt orange and red as autumn sets in. Yeah, that's my sort of place there. I like quiet. My wife might be okay with it too, as long as this was, well, I mean, Berlin's a big city. As long as wherever this estate was close enough to the hip and happening stuff. Hufeisensiedlung found itself the center of Berlin's housing referendum, designed by architect Bruno Taut in 1925 after a housing shortage fueled by the First World War. It was an example of progressive social housing, which sought to prioritize the living standards of residents. Today, however, the building is privately owned by Deutsche Wohnen, one of Berlin's biggest corporate landlords, with a property portfolio worth 26.2 billion euros. Holy balls. If the result of the referendum, which is technically only advisory, is successfully implemented by Berlin's state government, these flats will return to public ownership. Fuck them so hard. That is a lot of fucking money. My God, that is a lot of property. So my question is, so it's non-binding, but they say there's a mandate to do something. Is it just by virtue of the referendum being successful means people want it done? So what is going to drive the government to do it beyond people burning everything down? They need to acknowledge it, basically. Well, they can acknowledge it and then just flip you guys the bird, right? I'm not sure how Germany works, government-wise, but or politically. So clean, look at that, so pretty. And if I made a crap load of money, this is the sort of thing that I would actually be doing. Building a giant ass place for people to live in, the sort of thing that would be like I would expect in a resource-based economy. Oh, okay, sure. Because it would take a shitload of money to build it, and then try and keep the cost to get in low, even concentrating on half of it being homeless or low-income housing or something like that. Sorry. This should give you an idea of how much of a fuck she gives about people. Oh, that doesn't sound good. The campaign group Deutsche Wohnen and Company Enteignen, which roughly translates to expropriate Deutsche Wohnen and Company, was confident the city's voters would back the housing reform. Founded in 2017, the campaign group of around 3,000 activists took advantage of a feature of German law which allows certain topics to go to referendum, citizen referendums, yep, if 7% of the city's residents sign a petition. In June, the campaign announced it had collected 343,000 signatures, well above the 175,000 threshold, and most likely aided by the controversial decision to revoke the rent cap in April. Yeah, there's some power in citizen referendums. We don't really have them here in the United States. California does. That was the drive for how gay marriage came to be. Proposition 8, which is a citizen referendum, overturned gay marriage in California. And yeah, but I don't know of any other states that do that. Okay, Twitter. Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. Here we go. Translate. Okay. Whenever Giffy smiles in a friendly manner, I have to think of how she said to the evacuation of a homeless camp, if you can't afford to live in Germany, you just have to go back to Romania. What a fucking elitist bitch. Oh my god. Oh my god. Wow. Okay then. So she needs to be primaried. Yeah, it got this classist, racist, immigrant problem. Right now it's to not give a fuck about the referendum. Yikes. That sucks. Well, I imagine if that's the case, the people who've done this aren't going to sit around so nicely and be ignored. So I know you Europeans. Well, I mean, the more power you get, the less you care about people, and once more powerful you get, the more money you get, the more influence you get, the more sociopathic you become. It's kind of may end up just being a biopsychosocial result of just being in a position of power, especially in a city that's that large and that rich. But, you know, conservatives keep winning because they run on emotion. Progressives run on logic and compassion and empathy, and that doesn't get people's emotions riled up like, like hatred and anger and damn immigrants and stuff like that. I voted her in the same day they voted. They voted her in the same day they voted to expropriate big landlords. What? What the? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde thing. What are you guys thinking? You want to expropriate the landlords, but then you vote in a right-wing asshat who doesn't care about that. Yikes. Well, maybe it will be a learning lesson for Berliners, and maybe that will get resolved at some point. She's not in the Conservative Party? Is she in a leftist party? Or a liberal party? Call themselves Democratic. Oh, really? That's a fucking lie. Any democratic socialist who doesn't believe in this is a fucking fraud. I don't know if she played, that party hard and just a huge fraud, or if the whole party is messed up, but that's kind of one of those, I would expect, a core fundamental for democratic socialism. Oh, okay, the whole party's a big grift. Okay. Well, that's fucking bullshit. Well, that sucks. And Democratic Party is also a big grift as well, right? They talk leftist and then they support climate change and they support the fossil fuel industry. When there's money in it, it's gonna be hard to actually get a party in there that can actually do things, because the money is behind the destruction and the raping and the exploiting. That sucks, dude. Majorly sucks. Fuck capitalism. All right. On the day of a match between FC Union Berlin and Arminia, I joined the group on one of the last days of campaigning at Alten Forestieri Stadium. FC Union Berlin would go on to win 1-0. Okay, what is that? We have only one anti-capitalist party, and they have lost almost half their votes compared to... Oh, that sucks. Yeah, with vote for Bundestag. Oh, okay. It's especially with the pandemic coming on and people losing their minds about that sort of a thing, like anti-mask and anti-vax, that's really going to rile people up and get them to be, well, effectively more conservative. At least you'll make people who are leaning to the center much more conservative because about my freedoms. Oh, they don't have 5% now? Holy balls. Over 10%? Wow. Yeah, the conservatives will generally keep on winning. And then that's a large part of the problem because negative emotion gets your brain to shut off. Positive emotions make you think. And that's, yeah, I write about that sort of thing in my post. Lesser of two evils, voting is antithetical to democracy. Beyond reform, yeah, it's until we get rid of money, it's very difficult to fix things. I mean, there's so many parts to fixing this issue. But getting rid of money is going to be a large part of it because as long as people have to live in fear and worry about things and don't trust their governments and all that sort of stuff, conservatism is going to continue to reign because fear sells, especially when people aren't free. Okay, so these are football fans. That's what this is. Fans streamed in from the S-Bahn, the city's metro, nearby chanting and swigging bottles of Pilsner. Leonard Haas, a 27-year-old originally from Cologne, for affordable rents in Berlin, he said over and over to passing fans. A lot of people look at Paris and look at London fantastically, said Haas, referring to the city's notoriously high rents and property prices. But it is not inevitable. It is inevitable because money and exploitation happens everywhere because as these large conglomerates of real estate ownership companies, they buy everything up. Same thing's happening here in the United States, right? With Blackstone. It is under capitalism, it is definitely inevitable. Short of having a high minimum wage and a low maximum wage, or having all housing being public housing, there's basically no way to stop it from happening. I mean, you can go through and do the expropriation, but eventually, in a few decades, those houses will end up back in private hands at some point. At some point. Haas has been campaigning with Deutsche Wohnen & Co. Teignen for a year and has lived in the diverse and popular New Köln area for 3 years, where he said 50% of his income goes on rent. Ooh. He lives in a building owned by one of the landlords targeted by the referendum, Adler, which owns more than 30,000 flats in the city. 50% is huge. Actually, we're paying that much? We're paying about that much right now, but that's just because of our economic situation. Before, we were paying, 30% or whatever. You feel like you have no power, he said. That's why people are really enraged and why they are angry. You feel like you have to shut up and take the next higher rent your landlord says, because otherwise, what will you find? Where will you go? Exactly. Haas has campaigned all across Berlin, including at Tautz Siedlung. He remembered speaking to an elderly resident who told him, "I am angry that the working class movement built this, but now it's the corporations who profit off this." Yes. Yes, embrace your anger. It's a moment that will stay with me, he recalled. Ooh, nice shark. It's not just young Berlin residents fighting for the campaign. There's political backing too. Oh, I bet. Yeah, and if that the mayor there ignores it, I think there's going to be a lot more protests going on. At a farmer's market selling cheese, fresh vegetables, and Kartoffelsoup, potato soup, Kanan Bayram campaigned for re-election for the Greens. Cool. Berlin managed to scare Google away. Oh. Well, if they can do that, they can expropriate some fucking flats. Most assuredly. The aim of the referendum is to change the economic system to separate the rent issue from the other market because homes are not for sale, or shouldn't be for sale, she said. The aim is to take them away from the market. Oh, that's cool. Because nobody wanted to have their building built there because this would skyrocket prices. Victory in the referendum for housing campaigners would announce to the whole world that Berlin is not a warehouse and that you can't mass buy flats or houses here because people are against it and that tenants are also protected by the government, Bayram said. Well, hope to God that's true. I hope housing companies think, oh, Germans are crazy. Your money is not safe in Germany. That would be great. These are pretty. But not everyone agrees the outcome of the referendum is best thing for Berliners, namely the bodies representing the landlords. Naturally, no bias there. The referendum doesn't change the core problem of Berlin housing market that they had too few flats available, said David Eberhardt, spokesperson for the BBU Association, which represents many corporate landlords in the city. Changing the ownership has nothing to do with solving the problem that Berlin has become. Vonovia, the second largest corporate landlord in the city, has an average monthly rent of 690 euros compared to London. You would laugh because it's so affordable. Well, yeah, you expropriate and then you build a shitload more. I mean, that's kind of like... yeah, it's pretty much what you have to do. Build more. But then you have the issue with salaries in Berlin are amongst the worst in Germany too, though. Oh, well, that's ridiculous. Okay. I mean, if the rent is that high, I mean, like the one guy said, he lived in the one flat at 460, and he had a roommate, and then it went up by a third. Yeah, that would suck. High rent and low wages is, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Deutsche Wohnen, which owns around 113,600 properties in Berlin, declined to be interviewed for this piece. I wonder why. Instead, it told Vice World News in a written statement, we understand that people in the growing cities are frustrated by rising rents and the hopeless search for vacant flats. You know, the main problem is the scarcity of flats, not only in Berlin, but in nearly all big cities across Germany. Every vacant apartment we offer on the internet, we have to remove after 2 or 3 hours because hundreds of people are applying for the apartment. It doesn't matter what location or rent it has. So we just need more flats and new buildings and are the only way to solve the people's problems in the housing market. That's why I want to buy an apartment if I can. No way in hell I'm paying randomly. Your rent goes up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, in Belarus, they opened up like banks to give loans for flats and stuff like that. God, I don't know, a decade ago or something like that. And our friend, one of our friends there, and their family bought several flats at very reasonable prices then. So yeah, that's yeah, they've gone up a lot since then. Yeah, if you can buy it, that's definitely better. Not playing the rent game is definitely definitely smart. So if they need more houses, yeah, they need to build more houses, but they need to start building things in such a way like we talk about here, right? I mean, giant ass buildings that include sustainable energy, vertical agriculture, or more privilege than smart, but yeah, there you go. Yeah, to have the money to do that is definitely a position of privilege if you can do it, but yeah. So yeah, you build these giant skyscrapers that include the food, vertical farming, sustainable energy, includes a lot of regenerative processes, a lot of green spaces, including the schools, all that sort of stuff in it. You need to start building up and building down and not out. And that would be, once they get through expropriating, then they can work on building a giant thing like that to help make sure people have enough space to live and also food production, energy production, and places to work as well. they build something giant like that, then they can start tearing down some of these smaller apartment flats and then recycling them and turning that into green space. Independently of that, we do not think that expropriation is possible in legal terms, the statement continued. And even if it was, the cost for that endeavor would mean a collapse for the budget of the state of Berlin. Oh, so this is the state, not the city. So this is like the province, not the city? Is that right? It's like Berlin province and then Berlin city, right? So it's saying here a budget, the cost for that endeavor would mean a collapse for the budget of the state of Berlin. So I'm assuming Berlin is also a province or a state within Germany as well as a city. State and city. Okay, good. All right. Yeah. So that is what it means. Good to know. Had no clue. There are a few possible issues with implementing the referendum, as highlighted by opponents like Deutsche Wohnen. It argues that it would not be constitutional, although this is disputed heavily. Bayram, who happens to be a former lawyer, said it happened to be approved by the Federal Constitutional Court and is supported by Article 14 in the German Constitution. Booyah, bitch! Which says expropriation is permissible for the public good. She conceded, however, that everybody thinks it will go to the higher court. There's also the issue of cost. If the properties are bought back at market value, it could be incredibly expensive. However, it's not unprecedented for the city government to buy property off commercial landlords. Indeed, this month, the city negotiated to buy 14,750 apartments for 2.46 billion euro from Deutsche Wohnen and Vonovia, the two largest corporate landlords. Some suspect to take wind out of the sails of the referendum. Then finally, there's the political aspect. What happens next will also depend on the new configuration of Berlin's politics once the dust has settled from the election, like you were talking about. Whether or not the referendum definitively achieves its goal of seizing flats of mega landlords, it has certainly forced an important agenda. Before housing companies ignored us and laughed at us, Katrin Smidberger, a local Berliner Green candidate, said now they talk to us. The rest of Europe, both tenants and landlords, are watching carefully to see if similar solutions could be implemented in cities also facing housing crises. What a victory like this might do is shift the goalpost and create more space for generating alternative modes of housing delivery, ones that are actually executed by the state rather than private companies. Dr. Alexander Vasudevan, Associate Professor of Human Geography at the University of Oxford and author of The Autonomous City, A History of Urban Squatting, said, that could be a profound catalyst for something new. Berlin's housing situation has never been perfect, but tenants' rights have always been at the core of the city due to the high proportion of rents. This may be one of the reasons this referendum is taking place in Germany, as opposed to, say, the UK or France, which, ignoring the fact there isn't the same legal mechanism, suffer from worse situations. Berlin is the city of renters and has been historically, says Vasudevan. It is a city organized around housing struggles. It's part of the DNA of the city. That Booyah sent me into for Kim Possible. Okay, it's a cartoon that I have not seen, and that is an ugly ass mole rat. Booyah! Berlin is definitely a special place in Germany. Oh yeah, and as I mentioned before, our TV also died too. So they got that. I also have that on the pile of garbage going on. Ugh. However, the referendum pans out in the coming days and months. It is an impressive feat by a truly grassroots campaign, proving that the city doesn't want to sit back while market forces wreak havoc and force the most vulnerable migrants, the working class, and many non-German residents who weren't able to vote out, just like you were talking about. At the very least, the successful referendum campaign will provide something not many people fighting for housing rights have: hope. When campaigners realized they had likely won on the night of the referendum, it wasn't just hope causing them to cheer, hug, and occasionally kiss. There was a strong sense of euphoria and relief that years of hard work had paid off, not to mention that their fight to save their city might have succeeded. It's around 10 p.m. when I found Haas with tears in his eyes. I was fucking anxious about losing, he said, hugging me. I thought we might win, but I never thought it'd be this good. Feels fucking amazing. I bet it did. All right. So there is that. Hope to God something good comes out of this. Need more good stuff happening in this shit slide of a world. All right. So yeah, that's the only good thing we'll read today. This article here might take the rest of the hour that we have left, because these ProPublica stuff they're so big, but so interesting. So more than half of America's 100 richest people exploit special trusts to avoid estate taxes. Now, my problem with this, I commented on a post by, what the hell's his name? He's an economist under Clinton, Obama, over the short guy. He said something about this. I'm like, well, that's the point of trust. The entire point of trust is to protect your money. It's a very major tax mitigation, tax mitigation strategy. That's the whole point of trust. That is their job. And yes, rich people use them because they can afford the lawyers to do so. It has to be more than half. I mean, it has to be closer to 90% of the rich people use trusts, because that's what they're there for. All right. Secret IRS records show billionaires use trusts that let them pass fortunes to their heirs without paying estate tax. Will Congress end a tax shelter that has cost the Treasury untold billions? Yeah, so this might be something I haven't really written about this in my policies. So I do have an inheritance tax, and if we'd have to get rid of trust as a way of ensuring that inheritance taxes are also effective, because like we're talking about here, trusts are there to bypass taxation. So, I wonder, I don't know enough about this to know if we just need to get rid of trusts altogether, or I don't even know how to revise them to make it not harmful. Okay, see. It's well known, at least among... Fuck the IRS too. Yeah. As long as the monetary systems exist, tax collecting people need to be a thing. It's just, unfortunately, the tax collecting organizations work for the government and they don't work for the people. Much like the police, right? They're there to support the government and the 1%, and they're not there to support the people. Which that's always going to be the case, unfortunately. But yeah. Yeah, and then we went over an article last year saying that they're so underfunded that they don't target large businesses and corporations because they don't have the money. So it's us plebes that get it. They also made Scientology tax exempt and gave them a status as a religion. Well, yeah, that's a thing, right? You get to set yourself up as a 501c3, a tax exempt thing, or a nonprofit or whatever. That's a thing. Well, France told them to get the fuck out and got rid of their status as a religion, wasn't it? Yeah, here in the United States, we're pretty. The government is pretty fearful of even saying anything about religion in that way. Now, there's no one in the United States in the government who would stand up to Scientology or any other religion telling them to fuck off. So if you want, I can start a religion today. It's bounced in my head, right? I can start a religion. Germany, they are under surveillance and classified as cult. Oh, nice. Start a religion. Organize myself as a church. Turn my house over to, the church, and not pay taxes, and pay myself as a a priest or something like that. I mean, I am an ordained minister, and I have done weddings and stuff like that, so I could definitely do it. But it's yeah, a lot of work to go through that. Okay. It's well known, at least among tax lawyers and accountants, for the ultra wealthy, the estate tax can be easily avoided by exploiting a loophole unwittingly created by Congress 3 decades ago. The U.S. gave Germany a whole lot of shit regarding Scientology because apparently Germany is bigoted towards religious freedom. Yeah, Scientology is, yeah. Not a fan. Not a fan. The daughter and I were watching Riverdale before our TV decided to die, and in there they had a cult in there that didn't quite work the way Scientology did, but it was a cult, and it was going to end up killing everyone as well. Ugh. People need to think. Religion is part of, well, capitalism is the problem. Inequality is the problem that drives the need for religion. Get rid of capitalism, get rid of monetary systems, get rid of inequality, get rid of poverty, and then we can get rid of, well, religion will naturally go away for the most part. Did they also have a tax? I don't know. I assume they did because they were, I assume they did. Because there was a, well, it's like it's a young adult kind of hot sort of soap opera to an extent. It's kind of interesting, the things that they're doing with it. But yeah, there was Sisters of Quiet Mercy, which was a religious organization that did bad things. They did gay conversion therapy and other very unethical things there. So there's some of that going on there. Tax-free, of course. Okay, by using special trust, a rarefied group of Americans has taken advantage of this loophole, reducing government revenues and fueling inequality. I was actually thinking about putting a trust together for my family, actually, because at least prior to my wife becoming an immigrant, because there was, from what I remember about this, if I did die, then almost all my stuff would be taxed by 50%. Because my wife was an immigrant and they didn't want the money going back to Belarus, to another country. So I considered doing that, but now that the wife is, she's a citizen, I don't have to worry about doing that if I die, at least. Not that I'm going to die with anything that, it's going to matter. But, yeah, I was thinking about it to protect my family, but don't need to do it now. You're just gonna block me, disown me again. Yes, what a day. There's no way for the public to know who uses these special trusts aside from when they've been disclosed in lawsuits or security filings. There's also been no way to quantify just how much in estate tax has been lost to them, though in 2013, the lawyer who pioneered the use of the most common one, known as the Grantor Retained Annuity Trust, or GRAT, estimated they may have cost the U.S. Treasury about $100 billion over the prior 13 years. So am I going to have to get rid of trust altogether in my policies? Might have to. As Congress considers cracking down on grats and other trusts to help fund President Joe Biden's domestic agenda, a laughable agenda, a new analysis by ProPublica based on a trove of tax information about thousands of the wealthiest Americans sheds light on just how widespread the use of special trusts to dodge the estate tax has become. Yeah, this is just over half. Sounds so small. If you've got more than a few $100,000, if you've got $1 million or more dollars, you're using a trust to protect your stuff. I mean, it's a fucking no-brainer. No-brainer. Yeah, you got your trust fund babies, right? Take that money, put it in there, and you can turn it over to your kids when they're 18 or 21 or whatever it is. More than half the nation's 100 richest individuals have used grants or other trusts to avoid estate tax. The analysis shows among them former Democratic presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg, fuck that guy. Leonard Lauder, the son of cosmetics magnate Estee Lauder. Steven Schwarzman, a founder of the private equity firm Blackstone, fuck that guy. Charles Koch, fuck that guy. And his late brother, fuck them both, right to hell. David, the industrialists who have underwritten libertarian causes and funded lobbying efforts to roll back the estate tax. And Lawrence Powell Jobs, the widow of Apple founder Steve Jobs. Powell Jobs' Emerson Collective is among the ProPublica's largest donors. Taxation is theft. How you doing, man? Nothing Fixar Cabell. How you doing today? Any way to avoid... Well, I mean... You gotta do what you gotta do to survive, right? Sure, billionaires avoid taxes is really good for the economy. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where it comes. It comes down to where's that balance. Like, in my policies, I have a minimum wage and a maximum wage, and I have a wealth tax to get rid of all that stuff. So we're gonna have to get rid of most trust to be able to make sure that the wealth tax is going to be able to work. Now, a smaller trust should be okay. Like if you're making less than the $250,000 like maximum or whatever for my policies, and turning that over to your children, and then it'll be taxed based on your wealth tax or an income tax. That might be okay, but yeah, this is too much. We need a maximum wage. We need a maximum wage and a wealth tax. More than a century ago, amid soaring inequality and the rise of stratospherically wealthy families such as the Mellons and the Rockefellers, Congress created the estate tax as a way to raise money and clip the fortunes of the rich at death. Lawmakers later added a gift tax as a means of stopping wealthy people from passing their fortunes to their children and grandchildren before death. There's a way. Yep. Anyways, we should abolish capitalism. Exactly right. We need to get rid of capitalism and monetary systems in the first place. That is a true statement. You can't do that. Yeah, there's a way, like right now, I don't know what the law is, but when I was studying this stuff, you can pass like $10,000 per year to your like immediate family members or something like that. And you don't have to worry about taxes for it. I don't know what it is now, but yeah, there's definitely laws to do that. Nowadays, 99 point. If we had a maximum wage, why would Bezos continue to operate Amazon past the limit? Well, would that not put all of his employees out of work and no longer provide? Oh God, no. Dear God, no. No. Yeah. So what you're really pointing to is the fact that he owns most of the stock, right? And he doesn't actually have an income per se. He takes loans based off his stock where he owns the majority. So what this will essentially force is these people who create these giant businesses. I mean, Bezos isn't Amazon, right? The people who do all the work, they are Amazon, right? So Bezos, if he loses his billions, he can still be the CEO. He isn't even the CEO? He's not? Well, fucking see right here, right? He's not even the CEO, right? So a lot of the stock can go to the people, like employee-owned businesses, right? Cooperatives. It could be turned to. It was hypothetical, and this guy is picking. Well, he's not. He's just pointing out, and he's just pointing out just pointing out a fact, which is interesting. I didn't even know that either. Former lead. Okay. Yeah. So no, it's not about continuing it past that limit because you still be providing that service and still making more money. The money will go back into the infrastructure, go back into the workers, right? Why would continue their business if their income was a cap? Well, because they like doing their job. And that's part of the brain damage we have from capitalism, that it's all about money. I mean, there's more to life than just money, right? I mean, he just starting out, he was providing a valuable service to people by selling books over the internet. So even if he can't make billions of dollars, guess what? He can hire more people. He can pay people, actual wages. Healthcare. All that money won't go to him. It'll go back into the infrastructure and it'll go back into the employees, right? UK has something like that. and the business shut down for months at a time because it's better to go on vacation for 3 months instead of making peanuts. Okay, sure. That might be possible too. That's a part of the brain damage from capitalism, caring more about profit than doing good for humanity. I mean, that's always going to be the thing. So instead of them being asshats, I mean, if they're trying to give everyone vacation for 3 months and they're paid, okay, that's awesome. Definitely do that. That's the way. That's a great thing to do, right? But if they're just being dicks about it, then yeah, I mean, they can do that, but it's not good. I believe you if you make over $300,000, you tax 9%. So small business will shut down at the end of the year. So this is different. Corporate tax rates and individual tax rates are different. I don't have the corporate side figured out yet, right? So personally, the maximum wage for me is $675,000. Now, corporate tax rates are a different entity. I don't know. At some point, there will be a maximum wage, maximum profit. I don't know how that math is going to work out. I've not done the research on what's a good way to figure that out. But ultimately, if you've got a company, who is it? Anaholics suggests he had a concept of keeping amount of profit based on the number of workers you have. That way you have to have more workers in order to have more profit for the company, which is a concept I haven't had time to look at his idea. But ultimately, if corporations, if they're keeping all this money, they shouldn't be keeping all this money. They should be paying their workers more. They should be putting more into infrastructure. Now, I also get, like, if a company wants to save a few $1 billion to, invest in a new factory, I get that. And I would have no problem with the company saying, hey, we want to put aside, the next 5 years, $2 billion to set up a new factory. And then, okay, you set up a special account with the Fed or whatever and say, hey, we're going to take this and we're going to use this to build a factory, somewhere in the next few years. But if you don't do that, right, then you most likely tax the shit out of that money because it's not going for what it was supposed to do. Or if it was taken and put to another acceptable use, right? There's difference between individual income and the amount of money, the profit that a business makes. Those are two different things. So maximum wage is not the same as maximum profit, although there will be a maximum profit based on some sort of math at some point. I don't know what that is. And for me, my maximum wage is, minimum wage is $75,000, maximum wage is $675,000. And let's get back over here. Opting out of this conversation discussing how to fix capitalism is a waste of time. We do need to abolish it. True statement. True statement. My policies are, this is my policy site, if you haven't already seen it. I talk about the maximum wage here. And there is about humane nature and communism will work great. Well, human nature, that's a falsity. Human nature is determined by environment. Capitalism makes us competitive and violent and exploitive. I've got a whole post kind of on this. Like the psychology prior to the rise of methods of exchange, monetary systems, trade, and bartering, large scale. Once we hit the Paleolithic Revolution, we were nomadic, we were egalitarian, hunter-gatherers, and so on. So the quote, human nature we have today is a direct result of the exploitation inequality inherent to capitalism. It's not human nature. Human nature is cooperative. That's why humanity survived and became the apex predator on the planet. We were cooperative. And capitalism is antithetical not only to our progress, but it's also antithetical to our evolutionary psychology. So we're not abolishing human nature. We're actually by engaging in things that I'm talking about in my policies, we are actually helping humanity return to our human nature as an egalitarian and cooperative species. That is the most powerful thing we can do. And I talk about the harms of the very basic fundamentals of how monetary systems, how so on, breaks everything in this post. I share it all the time. We cooperate with our neighbors when we burn their villages down and stole their stuff. Of course it is. Yes, and that's why I said the Neolithic Neolithic Revolution, right? So this all starts with the split from Turkey. How you doing? Welcome. It starts with the shift from nomadic hunter-gatherers to 12,000 years ago to the rise of agrarianism, right? That's where it all starts. And you're right, this is pre-capitalism, but that's why it's not necessarily capitalism. It's methods of exchange, which is what I talk about in my post there. I don't go into, the Neolithic and the Paleolithic revolution, but this is where it really starts with the rise of agrarianism, because rise of agrarianism means private property, it means protecting things, it means, murdering people for resources and food and stuff like that. That is where it all went wrong. That is, agrarianism, farming is the single greatest and the single worst technological revolution humanity has ever done. It brought us the world we have today, the technology and the science and the space, but it also brought us the world we have today. Poverty, war, climate change, pollution, and all that sort of a thing. So, you're right. The murdering and the raping, the pillaging and the plundering was before capitalism. Of course, obviously, capitalism replaced feudalism. So naturally, that was there. And you keep going back, and it all starts with the Paleolithic Revolution. That's where it all starts to go to hell in a handbasket. Right there, when inequality and private property becomes a thing. Look. Right there. How's Turkey? We're coming up on turkey season, another month or so. It's our Thanksgiving where we eat turkey. Sorry for that. That's bad humor. It's gotta be really late over there. Yeah, really late for all you guys over there. So yeah, does that make sense? Nothing fixar kabeln. So most of my policies are here about trying to undo the harms of capitalism. And I start here with the philosophical foundations, changing our values, doing everything we can with our policies to reduce inequality and to help return humanity to a cooperative species, which is based here on the philosophical pillars. And then part 3 is ending monetary systems and shifting to a resource-based economy. So that's how my policies are essentially formed. Part 3 isn't fully formed, though. What about... No human nature will trump any economic... No, you're incorrect. You're incorrect. The human nature you're talking about is created by the environment. It is created by capitalism. We are murderous and violent and selfish and horrible because of inequality and poverty, war, and suffering. Yeah, we will. You're exactly right. Karma Police P. Oh, yes. Turkey. Yeah. We actually have an article here. Do I have an article on this? Yes, Turkey. That's one of the articles I was going to cover. Yes, climate change. Exactly. Yeah. If I get to this ProPublica thing, this is one of the things that we'll cover. Yeah, it's climate change is coming and droughts. Everything's going to be on fire. Everyone's going to die. The way people amass great wealth was by looting, plundering, and enslaving. Yes. The capitalism made it possibly wealthy by serving. That is a lie. Capitalism, people do not become wealthy by serving your fellow man. That's a fucking lie. Capitalism made it possible to become wealthy by exploiting your fellow man. I mean, that's the way it's always been since we had farming. Since the agrarian revolution, that is the way it's always been. Always been. That is a capitalist brain damagery there. That's definitely capitalist propaganda there. So you need to find some better sources which are actually based in reality. Walter E. Williams is a propagandist and a liar. Yeah, a lot of Turkey and a lot of the countries over there in the Middle East are going to have a fucking horrible time. The temperatures are getting higher and higher. Some of the highest in the world. Better sources, I guess you have no idea. No, I don't. I have no idea. But his his quote right here makes me know. That's all I need to know about him. That's all I need to know. Gap between the rich and the poor is. Yeah, oh, definitely, and that's inequality is always going to get greater and greater. The United States has one of the highest levels of inequality in the developed world, and as climate change gets worse and worse, that gap is going to get larger. You're exactly right, because the rich are going to be like, fine, we have all the water, the rest of you fuckers can just die because you're poor, and you can't do anything about it. And then eventually, riots, protests, violence is going to start happening. And we're right on schedule right now for RCP 8.5, which puts us on a 4.6 degree increase by 2100. So, I mean, it's insane. It is going to get, the Middle East is going to be a barren wasteland in the next 50 or 60 years. There'll be so much violence, so much fighting over resources, and so many immigrants moving, climate refugees going to where there might be food. And our globalized civilization has zero idea of what to do about it. I mean, my policies cover the whole thing, how to deal with all of it. But it basically requires, well, ending capitalism, ending monetary systems, and shifting everything to the war on climate change, and completely changing our infrastructure and stopping a bunch of exploitive assholes. It'll be difficult. I mean, I have a post here. One of my posts, I talk about how a resource-based economy might play out if it ever did. Now, even in here, it's not like a 10-year thing, it's like an 80-year thing. Several generations it would take, especially to get through the values change. How do you get the values change to be an integral part of society? That takes several generations to get it to be effective. And if you want to see my basic values changes that we need to look at, it's here, the 8 philosophical pillars for peace. And the most important part of these is the very first one. It's interdependence, because capitalism, monetary systems, systems of trade are antithetical. They are an abject rejection of our mutual interdependence, because they require, if not reward, exploitation and violence and war. So we have to set a new value system which sets itself as opposite to the horrors of capitalism, and also returns us to our innate evolutionary psychology as a cooperative species. That's primarily what my 8 philosophical pillars are here for. Interdependence needs to be the lens through which we see all things. The interdependence of humanity, not only with itself, but humanity with the natural world. Right? Because a lot of our problem is that capitalism doesn't give a flying fuck about the environment, as we quite well see from climate change, because it doesn't value that. The only value system we have as a globalized civilization is profit, no matter the cost. No matter the cost to humanity, no matter the cost to the environment. And I talk in my post, Tension Within Methods of Exchange, I talk about this whole thing, right? Just the existence of trade, the existence of money, the existence of any form of method of exchange automatically sets everyone against each other. It automatically puts people into an antagonistic state of mind already. And that started with the Paleolithic Revolution. That started with farming, private property. We start trading, bartering, money, feudalism, capitalism, all of it instantly puts each and every person against each other. And it's hard to have a world filled with peace when everyone is inherently set against each other by the very fundamentals, the very visceral fundamentals of the economic system. So that we need to change, and this is where we start. these with interdependence. Interdependence needs to be the lens through which we see and think of all things. All right. And in Turkey, I hope to God you've got a place to go that's where you have water and where you can stay at least cool. If you can move somewhere, I know it's almost impossible to do because I myself would like to move out of the United States to one of the Nordic countries. See if you can do that with your family. I don't have any easy answers for you. If we don't, actually, we won't get to that article today, but we'll get to this probably on Saturday. We'll talk about Turkey and all the water problems. This is a very big article talking about the problems. Okay, not very big, but big enough. Talking about the problems in Turkey. And this is, again, what's happening in Turkey is going to start being very similar with what is happening in other countries in the Middle East and in other countries outside of the Middle East too. Temperatures rising. People are going to start dying. All right. So back to ProPublica talking about trust. Unless you guys have any other comments on what I've just spewed out, or talks about capitalism, agrarianism, the Paleolithic Revolution, trade. I have plenty written on it. I have approximately, 120 pages written on resource-based economies and the horrors of capitalism. There's a lot there to consider. Anything? All right. So we'll continue with this ProPublica article talking about trusts and how trusts are used by the 1% to bypass estate taxes, inheritance taxes. Nowadays, 99.9% of Americans never have to worry about these taxes. They only hit individuals passing more than 11.7 million or couples giving up more than 23.4 million to their heirs. See, this right here is a bunch of bullshit. Giving more than 10 million, 20 million, drop that down to 100,000. Drop that down to 200,000. And then we've got a conversation. The federal government imposes a roughly 40% levy on amounts above those figures before that wealth is passed on. You don't need that amount of money. It's fucking ridiculous. You don't, Jesus Christ. Making more than $200,000 a year is just a fucking waste of money. I mean, it's an ungodly amount of money. I mean, you make $1 million every 4 years. No one needs that amount of money. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The federal government, For her part, Paul Jobs has decried as dangerous for society the early 20th century fortunes of the Mellons, Rockefellers, and others. I'm not interested in legacy wealth buildings, and my children know that, she told the New York Times last year. Steve wasn't interested in that. If I live long enough, it ends with me. Nonetheless, after the death of her husband in 2011, Paula Jobs used a series of grants to pass on around $500 million, estate tax-free, to her children, friends, and other family, according to the tax records and interviews with her longtime attorney. Lies! By using the grants, she avoided at least $200 million in estate taxes and gift taxes. All right, man. Thank you so much for your comments and going over the article there on Berlin expropriation and stuff like that. Have a good night. I hope you sleep well. And we'll see you next time. It's good to have you back. So she lied. She definitely passed on a shitload to her kids and others. Her attorney, Larry Sonsini, said Paula Jobs did this so that her children would have cash to pay estate taxes when she dies, and they inherit nostalgic and hard assets such as real estate, art, and a yacht. A 260-foot Venus is among the largest pleasure ships in the world. Without the $500 million or so passed through the trust, he said Paula Jobs' heirs would have to sell stock that she intends to give to charity to pay her estate tax bill. Okay, So again, they don't need a yacht. Like stuff like this can be turned into like a community-owned thing. Like no one needs that a yacht. I mean, that's just fucking stupid. It's just stupid. It's gross. Sonsini said Paul Jobs, whose fortune is pegged at 21 billion by Forbes, has already given billions away to charity and paid 2.5 billion in state and federal taxes between 2012 and 2020. When you look at an estate tax, an estate that might be worth multiple billions and all the rest is going to charity, and you put it in perspective, what is the problem we're worried about here? Sonsini asked. This is not about creating dynasty wealth for these kids. Well, that's exactly what trusts are for. In a written statement, Paula Jobs said she supports reforms that make the tax code more fair. Through my work at Emerson Collective and philanthropic commitments, I have dedicated my life and assets to the pursuit of a more just and equitable society. Philanthropy is a fraud. Others who special trust ProPublica identified, including Bloomberg and the Kochs, declined to comment on why they'd set up the trust on their estate tax or their estate tax implications. Representatives for Lauder didn't respond to requests to accept questions on his behalf. Schwarzman's spokesperson wrote that he is one of the largest individual taxpayers in the country and fully complies with all tax rules. Of course, because trusts are part of the tax law. A typical GRAT entails putting assets like stocks in a trust that ultimately benefits a person's heirs. The trust pays back an amount equal to what the trust creator put in plus a modest amount of interest. But any gains on the investments above that amount flow to the heirs free of gift or estate taxes. So if a person puts 100 million worth of stock in a GRAT and the stock rises to 130 million, their heirs would receive about 300 million tax free. In 1990, Congress accidentally created GRATs when it closed another estate tax loophole that was popular at the time. The IRS challenged the maneuver but lost in court. Of course they did. I don't blame the taxpayers who are doing it, said Daniel Hamill, a professor at the University of Chicago Law School. Congress has virtually invited them to do it. I blame Congress for creating the monster and then failing to stop the monsters once it became clear how much of the tax base the GRAT monster would eat up. Yeah, it's only natural that if this exists, you're going to use it to protect what wealth you have and pass it on as well as you can. I mean, there's a Supreme Court decision which said that citizens have no obligation to maximize their taxes. Users of the trust extend well beyond the top of the Forbes rankings. ProPublica's analysis of the confidential IRS files show. Eric Prince, founder of the military contractor Blackwater and himself heir to an auto parts fortune, used the shelter. Fashion designer Calvin Klein has used them, as have Saturday Night Live creator Lorne Michaels and media mogul Oprah Winfrey. We have paid all taxes due, a spokesperson for Winfrey said. The representative of Klein did not accept questions from ProPublica or respond to messages. A spokesman for Michaels declined to comment. Prince also did not answer questions. Hey, if you publish private information about me, I'll be sure to return the favor, he wrote. Go ahead and fuck off. The GRAT has become so ubiquitous in recent decades that high-end tax lawyers consider it plain vanilla strategy. Yep, of course it is. This is an off-the-shelf solution, said Michael Koznitsky, co-leader of the private wealth practice at law firm Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman. Almost every wealthy person should have one. Yeah, exactly right. And this is just like it says. It's a no-brainer. Everyone who's rich should be using them because that's what they're there for. Not that they should exist so much, but anyhow. ProPublica's tally almost certainly undercounts the number of Forbes 100 members who use shelters to avoid estate taxes. ProPublica counted only those people whose tax records or public filings explicitly mention GRATs or other trusts commonly used to dodge gift and estate taxes. But a wealthy person can call their trust whatever they want, leaving plenty of trust outside of ProPublica's count. This month, the House and Senate are hammering out proposals to raise revenue to help pay for the Biden administration's plans to expand the social safety net. Again, this is fucking stupid because they don't have to do it. Federal government spending has zero to do with taxation. Zero to do with taxation. The legislative blueprint released by House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal, Democrat of Massachusetts, would defang grants and other trusts, which would still be legal but no longer be as useful for estate avoidance. If the provision makes it into law, it would put a major dent in grants, said Bob Lord, an Arizona attorney who specializes in trusts and estates. Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders, Vermont, has proposed going further in undercutting estate tax avoidance costs. But the prospect of any reform is uncertain, as Democrats on Capitol Hill are fucking right-wing asshats and are feigning to struggle to find the votes to pass the package of spending and tax changes. Because we have rotating villains, Manchin and Sinema, in the parliamentarian there to make sure nothing happens. Oh, and of course the horrific ploy of, quote, bipartisanship. Grants are commonly described by tax lawyers as a heads I win, tails we tie proposition. If the investment placed in the grant soars in value, that increase passes to an heir without being subject to future estate tax. If the investment doesn't go up, the wealthy person can simply try again and again until they succeed, leading many users to have multiple grants going up at a time. For example, Herb Simon, founder of the country's biggest shopping mall empire and owner of the Indiana Pacers, was one of the most prolific grant creators in records reviewed by ProPublica. Since 2000, he has hatched dozens of the trust, often more than one a year. In an interview with the Indianapolis Star in 2017, the octogenarian Simon said it's always a big tax problem for the next generation when someone dies, but we've worked that tax problem. We won't have a problem with that. A spokesperson for Simon didn't respond to questions for this article. Mentions of these trusts have periodically surfaced in the press after being disclosed in securities filings, as was the case with the trust held by Facebook co-founders Mark Zuckerberg and Dustin Moskovitz, and Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg. In 2013, Bloomberg News published a groundbreaking series on grants, mining security filings and other records to reveal how the mega-rich, including casino magnate Sheldon Adelson and such families as Walmart's Waltons, had perfected the use of the device. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing overly complicated about it, honestly. Last year, or the year before, the Waltons transferred $40 billion into a family trust, something like that. I think it's just ridiculous. Instead of paying people at Walmart decent salaries and giving healthcare and education, they took it out and put it into a trust so that they can be rich. ProPublica's data shows that Michael Bloomberg, the majority owner of the company that bears his name and number 13 on Forbes' list of the wealthiest Americans, is himself a heavy user of grants. Over a course of a dozen years, he repeatedly cycled pieces of his private company in and out of the trust, often opening multiple grants in 1 year. During that time, hundreds of millions of dollars in income flowed through Bloomberg's grants, giving him opportunities to shield parts of his fortune for his heirs. Yep, of course. ProPublica described the transactions, but not the name of the person engaging in them, to Lord, the trust and the estate's attorney. The grant is the perfect loophole to avoid estate and gift tax in this situation, said Lord, who was also tax counsel for Americans for Tax Fairness and an advocate for estate tax reform. When Bloomberg ran for president in 2020, he vowed to shore up the estate tax. Owners of the biggest estates are expert at gaming the system to reduce what they owe. A campaign fact sheet for his tax plan said, Bloomberg vowed to lower the estate tax threshold so that more estates are taxed. Fuck yeah, they should be. And to shut down multiple estate tax avoidance schemes. His fact sheet offered a few details as to how they would do that, and it didn't mention grants. Interesting. The legislation Congress is now considering to curtail grants would leave open other options for estate tax avoidance, including a cousin to the grant known as a charitable lead annuity trust, or CLAT. Sounds like a disease, which contributes to charity while passing gains from stocks and other assets onto heirs. And the legislation would grandfather in existing trusts, meaning that those who already have established trusts would be able to continue to use them to avoid paying estate taxes. Of course they do. Of course they do. This has set off a predictable push by tax lawyers to get their clients to create tax sheltering trusts before any new legislation takes effect. Porter Wright, a law firm that offers estate planning services, told existing and potential clients it was critical to evaluate opportunities because the window may close very soon. There are important and time-sensitive issues which could substantially impact the amount of wealth you're able to transfer free of estate and gift tax to future generations. All right. There you go. A whole bunch on trusts. They are problematic. Something needs to be done about it. All right. Questions, comments, suggestions? Now we'll tackle this Turkey article. Come back here. So 20 minutes. We should be able to finish this, right? Yeah, we can finish this. This is from Yale Environment 360. As the climate bakes, Turkey faces a future without water. And we had the someone in here from Turkey talking about just that very thing. Current Police P, that's who was talking. Yeah, it's climate. Okay, the next one we have, the apocalypse will not be slow. And that's kind of what this is. This next article will be talking about that. Much like we're talking about here in Turkey, droughts are going to start killing people and killing crops, and people are going to start dying. And this next 50 or 60 years is going to be devastating. So, as the climate bakes, Turkey faces a future without water. No nation in the Mediterranean region has been hit harder by climate change than Turkey. But as heat and drought intensify, Turkey is doubling down on large-scale agriculture, stupid, and development, and spurring a water supply crisis that is expected to get much worse. And again, when I talk about this sort of a thing, we're talking about climate change, and what we need to do for this sort of a thing is we need to start building communities, well, up and down, earth scrapers, earth scrapers and skyscrapers, right? Going into our colleges, to Atlas pillars, you know, that sort of stuff. But also that we need to invest heavily in vertical agriculture. That is the real primary thing that people need to do. Turkey needs to stop this fucking bullshit with large-scale agriculture. Now, I'm assuming this is land-based, right? And then start large-scale vertical farming so that, you know, if you're doing normal farming, you're watering your crops and it all just evaporates. Whereas if you're doing vertical farming, it uses 10% of the water and you keep it inside this closed environment so it doesn't just evaporate away. And you can recycle it and be regenerative and all that other stuff. So this is, yeah. And we talk about in policies, right, that we need to be throwing trillions of dollars over to countries like this that are suffering so that they can shift to sustainable energy, so they can shift to vertical agriculture and so on, because people are going to die and the lands are going to be destroyed. And we need to be working towards undoing the harms of climate change as much as we can. Across Turkey's sprawling breadbasket, the Konya Basin, wheat withered and fields lay parched this year under the stress of the lowest rainfall in decades. In July, thousands of baby flamingos perished for lack of drinkable water, their corpses entombed in the dry, cracked mud. Wow. This summer, Turkey endured a blistering heat wave with the fiercest temperatures in 60 years. Wildfires raged for nearly 2 months along its southwestern coast, known to tourists as the Turkish Riviera for its turquoise waters and unspoiled beaches. Market towns and villages emptied as more than 2,000 fires scorched 5 times more land than usual, close to 200,000 hectares, 770 square miles. At least 8 lives were lost and delicate pine forests decimated, taking a tragic toll on natural life, including the ecosystem of the unique pine honeybees. Oh my God. At the center of Turkey's woes are severe drought conditions and diminished groundwater levels, caused by a combination of climate change and water management policies that have taxed water supplies as never before. Power plant reservoirs, freshwater sources, and potable water supplies dwindled to all-time lows this summer, threatening the drinking water supplies of major cities. Meanwhile, on the country's northern borders, flash flooding near the Black Sea claimed nearly 100 lives. According to the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, 60% of Turkey's land area is prone to desertification. Continuing climate change and land use change Continuing climate and land use changes could wipe away its soils and turn it into a terrain not dissimilar from Badlands National Park in South Dakota. I've been there, says Karim El-Gendi, sustainability expert concentrating on the Mediterranean at Chatham House, a London-based policy institute. This, says climate scientists, is the new normal in Turkey and the surrounding eastern Mediterranean region. Despite the ongoing crisis, experts say Turkey's president Recep Tayyip Erdogan remains focused on development at the expense of the environment. Right-wingers, that's what they do. Turkey's main focus remains economic growth and attracting foreign investment, says El-Gendi. It encourages population growth and large-scale building construction. Its adaptation measures remain well below what's needed to address the climate risk it faces. Turkey is just one of 6 countries that hasn't ratified the 2015 Paris Agreement, which doesn't fucking mean anything because it's toothless and it just doesn't do anything. It has no enforcement mechanism. It's just a nice piece of paper to sign that makes people feel better. Anyhow, 2015 Paris Agreement, which commits signatories to take steps to limit global warming to between 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius. Again, it's performative. It's political theater, something like this, because it's non-binding. It's like there's one country which is made it to their goals. One of the countries, that's it. Earlier this month, Erdogan signaled his intention to complete ratification in time for the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow in November, but he shows no signs of rethinking Turkey's economic policies, which since 2000 have catapulted it near the upper echelons of Europe's economies. President Erdogan has encouraged investment in intensive agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism to provide jobs, and massive coal and hydroelectric projects to supply power. Okay, there we go. So many wrong things here. Again, vertical farming, hydroelectric isn't probably the way to go. Where was the map here? Turkey. Okay, so they could be doing tidal here. Again, tidal will probably work here, and geothermal again. Oh, we got the Mediterranean as well. You got both sides that you could probably go on to get tidal, and then you need to do geothermal, and that's tidal. Geothermal is what they need to concentrate on, and then of course vertical farming, like I say all the time. While some cities and ministries within Turkey are fighting back against the federal focus with their own programs to protect the environment and address water shortages, experts say it's too little, too late. The latest UN climate report singles out the Mediterranean basin as one of the world's climate hotspots that will bear a disproportionate brunt of global warming. The Mediterranean states will most likely become progressively drier and drastically warmer at higher levels of global warming. Assuming this is a watering holes, right? Okay. Measurements at a sinkhole. The lack of rain has forced farmers to draw down groundwater, causing massive sinkholes. Okay. This summer, on the Italian island of Sicily, a sweltering temperature of 120 degrees Fahrenheit shattered European records. To combat blazing wildfires, the European Union dispatched firefighters and water-dropping planes to Italy, Greece, and Albania. Droughts scoured Spain for yet another year, advancing desertification that affects a fifth of its territory. The chronically water-stressed eastern Mediterranean fared no better. In Syria and Lebanon, many crops failed due to rising temperatures, and drought conditions have escalated over 2 decades. Yeah, even here in the United States, we've had some crops that, like the wheat, ended up being almost burned or something like that, and half the crop died. And then there were berries of some sort that ended up just baking on the vine and not being useful. It's gonna get worse. But even within this hotspot region of warming, Turkey stands out. Already temperatures in Turkey are 1.5 degrees Celsius higher than 50 years ago, says Barış Karapinar, an associate professor of climate change policy and lead author of the IPCC's 5th assessment report. He claims that temperatures in Turkey could jump as much as 7 degrees Celsius over 1950 by 2100. Yeah, so as I was talking about, right, we're on goal for RCP 8.5, which has us at a 4.6 degree increase from those levels. So they might even be higher because of the extremes of climate change, which is mind-boggling. A terrifying prospect that egregiously overshoots the Paris Agreement's global upper limit. The worst-case scenario, says Karapinar, would turn parts of the Mediterranean region into hell, making much of it uninhabitable. Everything about daily life will change for the worse, he warns. And again, as this is going to get worse and worse over there, there's going to be a lot of climate refugees going from there to other parts of Europe. And if Europe and the United States, the West, wanted to do something about that, they could. Nowhere does the collision course of Turkey's industrial growth and climate change come to a head more strikingly than in agriculture. Since the 1980s, policies have supported lucrative cash crops, transforming Turkey into the world's 7th largest agricultural producer and a top exporter of crops ranging from cereals and fruit to tobacco and tea. The sector is a workhorse for the economy. As Turkey's largest employer, it supplies jobs to nearly a fifth of the workforce and has risen to account for 6% of the country's economic activity. Damningly, it also now accounts for almost 75% of the country's freshwater use, a figure experts warn is not sustainable. Again, vertical agriculture would bring that down to 7.5% of use. And also, it wouldn't be putting it into the environment where it's just going to evaporate off. So it's just, oh my God. Vertical farming is what we need. The switch to water-intensive cash crops has depleted groundwater aquifers and dried out river systems. The switch to, okay, I just read that. Sugar beets, corn, and cotton typically thrive in climes with 3 or 4 times as much rainfall as Turkey receives. In just a decade, our water use has gone up by a third, says Dagane Tulune, a land use specialist at Istanbul University. This Tulune continues, has forced many farmers to drill illegal wells to tap already low groundwater. When groundwater reserves can no longer replenish lakes, rivers, and wetlands, farmers then have even less surface water for irrigation, and everyone has less drinking water. Agriculture's staggering water consumption is also due to the ages-old irrigation techniques of the Turkey's farmers, open channels and raised canals that deliver water to crops over land. So that stuff evaporates off very quickly, especially in these higher temperatures. According to Turkish officials, these systems suffer water losses of 35 to 60% through evaporation, seepage, and leakage. Like I'm saying, the strain is easy to see. For the second straight year, farmers in the central province of Konya, the northwestern province of Edirne, and coastal Izmir, reported below average harvests of wheat and other crops, forcing Turkey to increase grain imports. Likewise, Turkey's widespread use of hydroelectric power is sapping water supplies. The world's 9th largest hydroelectric power producer has dammed just about every river in the country, including the iconic Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Oh my God. While hydropower is a renewable energy source, it dries out aquifers and creates water scarcity downstream of the dam. Reservoirs can lose thousands of liters per second to evaporation, according to Vienna-based NGO. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of hydropower that way, of dams and stuff like that, for much that reason. Moreover, Turkey's urban and agricultural expansion has come at the cost of grasslands and wetlands, ecosystems that help to absorb carbon, buffer the impacts of intense rain or drought, and filter groundwater. Since 1950, the country has lost between 1.3 and 2 million hectares of wetlands to farmland, highway projects, airports, hydropower reservoirs, factories, and urban neighborhoods. These losses, which continue today, greatly reduce the ecosystem's potential for adaptation and resilience, says Karapinar. Again, building up and down while rewilding the space that's being currently used for buildings and stuff like that. That's what needs to be done. As Turkey gets drier, forest fires are becoming a more pressing concern. Since the 1970s, the country has focused on the planting of sprawling commercial monoculture forests of pine, a tree that burns easily and creates fodder for wildfires. Nice. Forest fires are nothing new around here, says Karapinar. But by planting pine trees rather than trees more resistant to fire, you have much larger wildfires. To fight desertification and regrow forests lost to fire, Turkey's Environment Ministry launched an initiative in 2003 with the goal of planting 7 billion trees by 2023. Among the varieties are pines, but also cedar, birch, walnut, mulberry, and ash trees, which require less water. Holding out hope that the situation is dire but not futile, experts say Turkey must devote significant budget resources to adaptation measures. Most importantly, says Tulune, Turkey has to have water management policy that is more than just words on paper. Agreed. And shifting to vertical agriculture. The current water management system is unviable and tweaking it won't fix it, says an expert. Agricultural subsidies, for example, must be rechanneled to encourage farmers to grow less water-intensive crops, such as barley and lentils, and farmers must be helped to adopt closed irrigation systems, such as drip and sprinkler networks, which are much more efficient than the open systems. Rainwater harvesting and strategic use of gray water could cut consumption by 40%. Oh yeah, that's definitely good stuff. And even better, vertical agriculture. The government could buy a bunch of this land and pay for vertical agriculture. And just like, God, I talk about this all the time, right? The government set up a program. Government could basically pay for the farmland and say, hey, 10% of it you're going to use for vertical farming, and you're going to wild the rest of it. You gain a lot more green space. You gain a lot more, room for native ecology, and then you gain the vertical farming, which can grow all year round and reduces water and can create the same amount of food all year round. In Izmir, Turkey's third largest city, environmentally minded locals are working together with the EU and Turkey's Environment Ministry to increase the region's resilience. The city has a green action plan, and this spring, 11 Turkish mayors, including Izmir's, signed an alternative water management manifesto that calls for managing water demand by regulating usage in agriculture and industry, as well as encouraging gray water and rainwater harvesting for household use. Okay, that's perfect. Again, you look at earth ships, right? Earth ships do that sort of a thing. They use gray water, use it several times, and then they use it also for plants. So yes, definitely a good thing. But these well-intentioned initiatives pale in contrast to the enormity of the task at hand, experts say. The current system is unviable, and tweaking it won't fix it. Says Trine Christensen, who focuses on water assessment at the European Environment Agency. We need to change the way we produce food and energy. If we don't tackle the systemic logic of ever-increasing efficiency, ever more output, will not see any great progress toward environmental improvement. Exactly. Sustainable energy, vertical farming. To ward off the worst, Turkey has to rethink its full speed ahead growth strategy, says Christensen. Otherwise, Turkey and its neighbors must acknowledge that vast swaths of territory will soon be unfit for life. Exactly. Exactly. Again, my climate policies talk all about this sort of a thing, right? Well, yeah, basically you have to do a large-scale national report to figure out how climate change is going to affect the country and then figure out how you're going to stop it. Now, again, of course, vertical farming, shifting to sustainable energy, working towards ending desertification. There's quite a few different techniques for doing that, right? And better regenerative water management is going to be a large part of it. There's lots of things that they could do, but that will come potentially at the cost of economic growth. And the only thing that matters in capitalism is economic growth, regardless of who is harmed or if the environment is harmed, because that is the whole point. Profit, no matter the cost to human lives, no matter the cost to humanity or the natural world. And that's fundamentally what we have to battle against, right? That it doesn't care. The people dying, the environment being destroyed, and climate change are negative externalities that aren't cared about in the pursuit of profit. All right, everyone, we have made it to our 2-hour mark. is the last minute for comments. Any random comments, whatever you want to say. Again, thank you so much for gifting me with your time. I really do appreciate that. I know there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in my life, and just giving me some of your time is I do appreciate that. I stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central as well. And I'll continue this as long as I can, and we'll see if things get better beyond January or something like that. So, all right, everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you later.
Just me and you, let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn blue. Watch the stars.